Oh, we're going to Ibiza with the Seat Ibiza, and a very fitting setup. We have three colors for you for the initial shot: white, mystery blue and desire red. And desire red together with the 1.5 liter Evo AJ has already shown you. Today we want to take the 1 liter TSI and also the Excellence trim level and the Style trim level. So different variety for you here today. An in-depth review of the Seat Ibiza exterior, interior and the driving experience on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and the #1 community to discuss cars with me, with Thomas. And let's go in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! The new generation of the Seat Ibiza has a new MQB A0 platform that is a compact car platform, and yeah, I mean the car is a little bit wider and a little bit longer, you'll soon see that. In the front you can see no matter which variant, Excellence or Style you pick, you have those very dynamic headlight form. Optional, what we see here on both vehicles, you can also go for LED headlights now. Standard would be halogen. Question is then of course if you want to go for that extra option, but there are also different packages available where you can combine it with some other things. And I mean, it really looks like a small Leon, doesn't it? 4.06 m or 13.3 is the total length of those two vehicles actually. So the Seat Ibiza has grown just a little bit in length. It's also a little bit wider. The rim choice, Excellent and Style, both come with 15-inch, here optional 16-inch, and if you go for the Excellence you can optionally also go for 17-inch. I want to hear your opinion, which rim size would you actually go for? I think 16-inch works already very well, and mystery blue is of course my favorite color, a color we at Autogefühl call Thomas Blue because it comes close to the color I really like. In general design, at the side profile you can see here very crisp with those design lines, also the side mirrors right there. Everything fits to the crisp design also in the front. And this new generation is only available as a 5-door. This is a trend we see quite often now with a small car segment. That brings down the cost, and most people picked the 5-door version anyway. Then a little bit falling roofline. We will soon see if we lose some headroom right there. Already for a small car, quite solid door handles. And then to the rear, again, the repeating design scheme right there. And then the chrome look just at the lower part. Do you like it? From the rear, Excellence and Style are not too different. I think the overall design concept really works, as they also have these sharp edges in the rear. It is not super different from the previous generation. Already that one was, quite a beautiful dynamic car. And I think the main point is really that if you look at the competitors in this very segment, small car segment, this one here surely has a fresher outlook. And just to compare with the FR again, not only logo, here it has those fake exhaust tips to demonstrate a more sportier look. So guys, it's said that you shall train your brain with remembering numbers, and let's just try that. This one here starts with the MPI, 1 liter naturally aspirated petrol engine with 75 horsepower. That would be the cheapest variant. It's possible if you mainly move it in the city. Then this one here, the 1 liter TSI, either, as we see it right here, 95 horsepower, looks the same when you have the 115 horsepower variant. And the last petrol engine, 1.5 liter Evo, 150 horsepower. Then there's also 1.6 liter diesel in 2 horsepower variants. And last but not least, the CNG engine, 1 liter and with 90 horsepower. Very promising engine. We will test that one at a later stage, because with the CNG it's the most sustainable version. So this is the car key. So the door handles. It's the closing sound. That could be a little bit better, right? Then inside of the doors, you have a lot of hardpack stuff here. This could be a little bit better, but it's of course always to bring the cost down. Then leatherette cover for the armrest. This is soft. Automatic window levers for all 4 windows. Then reasonable space here for the inside of the door. You can put also big bottles in there. And then the highlight of this vehicle are really the seats. This one is style trim level, but already in the mid trim level you have great seats, different fabric materials. They don't get too hot, especially when you're here on Ibiza, for example. Very important. Here with the manual setup to pump it up, your man. And interesting, this space here is not that narrow as in other vehicles, and here you see the gaps here. You can really grab that one pretty easily. So there's, you know, some important details here for you. The steering wheel is really slim and has some great contrast stitches on the inside. A quite sporty appearance from the steering wheel, that's for sure. And if you compare it to other vehicles in the segment, you already see you have quite some room in here. And now to the white vehicle with the excellent trim level, not only with the entry cap, but also with different seats. You have another styling right there. Also you could get an Alcantara package, then you will also have Alcantara on the seats. So Alcantara looks a little bit, you know, more premium maybe, but the fabric as we have here, also in the excellent trim, is actually even a little bit better. You know, as the Alcantara, as for durability and as for the climate comfort. The Alcantara again adds some more cozy premium feeling. And another look at those different decor elements we have then here in this excellence car. And let's take a comparison look in the interior of the FR. From a standard one, the FR comes still with cloth seats in a sportier style. This one here then, the sport seat with Alcantara package, so the seat form is different. Stronger side bolsters, you know, a little bit more side support. And then Alcantara on the inside and leatherette on the outside, also a great mix. Also the seats, they appear a little bit bigger, and indeed they make a compact segment impression. And I can already tell you so far, it's really the case, you feel that you would be in an even bigger car. It's a very interesting finding. Also FR steering wheel, it's a little bit thicker. Also has the FR logo on the lower part. And this vehicle also equipped with a DCC, so when we drive all the vehicles later on with the Sport here, also with the FR Sport suspension and DCC, we will focus on this aspect, so it's really worth to watch all three driving parts later on. So let's get inside. And for tall people, it's actually no problem. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1". And here, this is the one without panoramic roof. Still have a lot of room above my head. That works pretty well. Here we can change the seat various ways and also steering wheel in all different ways. Here, by the way, you've maybe already seen it. As decor elements, we have just, plain gray one. And this is, more conservative style. But already from the feeling we have here, the vehicle has really grown in size and interior more than exterior. Cockpit overview. First of all, it's basically split right here, the dashboard. So it's a design line right there, hard pack on the top. Then this is here the decor element. It's a matte one. This one would be the most conservative style. I think it's quite neat already like this. It doesn't have to be screaming out. You will soon see the difference. Then everything is really clean. The climate unit is in the lower part. This one is still the classic deal with turning the knobs and stuff. This one is optional 8-inch screen, also with a proximity sensor, but it's not only touch, so this would be, moving the map and stuff. You still have those two knobs right there for volume and for zooming in and out. And some requested that. There's still something, knob-wise. And again, the steering wheel, where I can, for example, change the small screen on the right side here for consumption data. And on the left side, you have volume and some more, if you want to skip music. And now the detail to the infotainment system, and again, the GPS. You have those hotkeys, for example, going GPS there, but also for the connectivity, putting in with the plug for the smartphone mirroring function, but also standard Bluetooth connection would be also possible. Hotkey for the radio, see those ones are not real buttons left, this is just touch, but then this one here is for real, or here going to the vehicle. Overall, pretty much self-explanatory, the whole system. You also can have this app view if you don't want to use the side buttons. And the instruments, pretty sporty with this white look, very crystal clear as well. By the way, if anyone says, oh, hey, the engine warning light is on, that's always the case when you turn on the ignitions with every Seat, Volkswagen, Audi, Skoda and so on. When the engine is running and then the light is still flashing, then that's a problem. And in the middle here, we have a digital screen for consumption data or some 2D GPS info. That's the lower part for the inductive charging of your smartphone, or you can have two USB ports right there. That's quite handy. And the middle unit, the cup holders should be a little bit more adaptive. That K would become a little bit handier. And then under the armrest, some more space. So here in the Excellence terminal, the only difference is that the 8-inch screen comes with a standard equipment. You don't have to go for it optional anymore. And in this vehicle here, we also have this golden decor element. For some, it's maybe a little bit too much. For others, it's just right. It's exactly your pick. So, the main difference is really which infotainment are you going for? Are you sticking with the little bit smaller one, or are you going with the bigger one? And also decor element you can see in this steering wheel, also with the X, and then also with contrast stitches again on the inside. And the rear view camera, putting in the reverse gear, and there we go. Actually quite good resolution. You also have this PDC at the same time. And you only have the PDC if you don't have the rear view camera. And you can see here, vehicles are passing. It is useful, but of course it's a small car, so you can also, for example, live without it if you want to save some money. When you have the panoramic roof, you also have a different ceiling unit right here to open it, and also other lights. Pretty interesting. Otherwise it would be just very small. Then you can open the roof right there. This one is electric, however, and you can have some more light in there. But of course, you lose a little bit of headroom already in the front. And for shading it, it's just like this manual, easy solution. Now to the rear compartment, and this is the really interesting thing because we have experienced small vehicles with the same length that hardly have any space in the rear. And wow, there's even still that's sometimes a result in a mid-size segment car, not even a compact car, and also headroom. So this is really the strength of the all-new Seat Ibiza, and also if you compare it to the previous generation, because like this, I couldn't sit in the previous generation. So definitely for the rear, and considering the length, the Honda Jazz was also a vehicle that was great in the package. So I think so far, Seat Ibiza and also the new VW Polo and the Honda Jazz, those three seem to be the best in the in the package right there. So same style also from the seats in the rear, I think A+. And what about the rear compartment when we have the panoramic roof installed? So that should reduce the headroom a little bit, yeah, but I think it's still okay. So in the front it's a little bit worse than in the rear. Still leaves me some space in the rear because it's mainly in the front, and then the ceiling is raising up again right for the rear passenger. Cleverly done. So let's take a look at the trunk. You flip the Seat logo, and here we go. Reasonable space for a small car with a loading sill right here. This one you can of course easily remove, just like this, and then like this and this. Then it's also easier to flip the seats also from here in a 1/3, 2/3 split. That's how it looks like, the maximum setup. Also below here we have spare tire, and here's also, for the sound system and stuff. Just this one here, the cover is something a little bit wobbly, let's say it. Let's say that maybe it could have been a little bit more stable. And last but not least, what about the co-driver's seat? If we put that one all the way to the front, that's it. And the other one, you cannot flip it totally down in a flat way. But here you have approximate picture of what you can do on the maximum loading scale with Ibiza. I welcome you to the first driving part. This one here, the 1-liter TSI, small turbo engine, petrol, with 95 horsepower in this case. So, there's also the naturally aspirated one, which could be a good base engine if you don't do any motorway driving and stuff. With the turbo, of course, you have more power reserve than already. And we will cover different aspects. So first of all, what do you realize? Well, the car sits on this new MQB A0 platform. It's way stiffer than before, so a quarter stiffer than the chassis in the previous generation. And you feel that because the vehicle, when driving it, delivers you a lot more calmness, a lot more stability on the one hand, but also more sportiness on the other hand. And it feels bigger. It is somewhat bigger, just from the pure dimensions, but you also feel it while driving. So to me, it already feels a little bit like a transition from small car segment to compact car segment. I mean, it's no wonder it's basically a compact class car platform in some way. The steering is really precise and very direct. It's like in a sports car. Also, it's really thin and very compact, so very easy to handle. At the same time, when you're just in the city and want to search a parking spot, something like that, it's also fairly easy to handle. You don't need much force at the steering wheel. We have this 5-speed manual gearbox here. The ways of the shifting gears are quite short and crisp. And it's also pretty effortless. The car itself is really silent. And for example, we recently had a Citroen C3, and it was actually a pretty decent car. It's good to have those direct comparisons, for example, and this car here, for example, is way more silent. So They've really worked on the noise insulation. Also, the engine is very well insulated. You hardly hear it. When you keep it at low RPMs, you couldn't even tell that an engine is running at all. So, overview. There's a pretty slim rear mirror, but still it's a small car, just about 4 meters in length. And the side mirrors, they have this great design, you know, with the sharp edges. Maybe you could say that reduces a little bit the visibility, but overall, since the car is not too big, that's perfectly fine. So the seats are also pretty comfortable from the first impressions, also while driving. For a tall driver, also not a problem at all. They also offer you enough side support. Now first test for the suspensions. Some potholes. I mean, I didn't get, you know, a punch in the lower back, or what does my co-driver say? Was it fine? So it was fine. Because, you know, sometimes when there are cars and you think, the suspension is quite okay, but then you face a big pothole and it's like, oh, my lower back. And then you really feel the difference of a good suspension and, you know, a mediocre suspension. Now we're coming to a little sportier part. Interesting, by the way, also when you accelerate those 3 cylinders, you always have like this, like a you know, baby. Whoa! The hell? Something was sticking out of that window of that van. Well, stuff happens. So you always have to be concentrated. And if you have an agile car, then you also have no problem to avoid something like that when something suddenly appears. So back to this 3-cylinder, when it's just running at the low RPM, you don't really feel a difference, but as soon as you give it a little bit more throttle, then you do hear a sound difference. And I think, not sure what you think about it, but I really like it because it sounds a little bit sportier even somehow. It's a really funny thing. So when I just listen to it, you know what I mean? It's really funny. And it accounts, by the way, both if the engine is combined with a turbo or not. So also the small 3-cylinder MPI engines, they basically sound the same. So now to the 3rd gear. So look at here how precise the car is to handle. A lot of fun to drive the car. And of course, as it's so small, you don't get any, you know, you don't get nervous when you face some narrow situations. And, you know, that's of course, no, it was a Leon. First looked like the Ibiza. Of course, we are on the Ibiza here today, as we said earlier, so that's a really fitting surrounding, of course, for the vehicle. I really wonder how calm the car is and feels. And well, we have also other comparisons to other new generations. For example, the Ford Fiesta. This one here is more silent. The Ford Fiesta was also really fun in driving. That was, you know, also one of the main characteristics. So, is this one here more fun to drive? I'm not so sure. I mean, they're both fun to drive, and also the suspension in the Ford Fiesta of the 8th generation is also really good, so you can't complain about that. However, I feel that the long-term riding comfort would be better with this vehicle, seating-wise. It can depend from body to body, but from my experience, this one here feels a little bit better from the long-term comfort, especially for tall people. I've also good view through the windshield. I mean, just enjoy those scenic roads here. Clear blue sky, green pine trees. I love that sign, especially when I'm in a car that is fun to drive. That means we have a nice corner to drive. Suspension, by the way, you know, this is not a special sports setup here, so we have some tilting to the left and the right. It's perfectly fine for the city, you know, you won't use it as a super sports car. But you see, even if I'm in tighter corner here now, the car is really good to control. So, you know, I found it very important that you also have affordable cars which are fun to drive and still serve a lot of purposes. And I think, you know, that's even more important to have some very expensive supercars and stuff. So back to the third gear, how calm the car is. I can just tell you that once more. I think this is also one of the major aspects, because formerly, if you want to have, you know, a rather sovereign and calm car, you had to go to higher car segments, and that's not really necessary here. So now back to second gear. Now we have to stop, and we can show you some acceleration from the first gear. So stop right here. Let the bus pass. We just want to, you know, be quite safe here. And again, when we're standing still now, a lot of vehicles are passing. That's an old Ibiza. Old. Not really that old, like the previous generation. You see, maybe I see it on the action camera. It was a 3-cylinder. When we're standing still, it's like a little bit shaking, but you don't feel it in your body that much. So, good to go now. Let's go. And that's 100 kilometers. It's pretty impressive for a 1-liter turbo engine, isn't it? There's a little bit of clutch slip there. The car didn't feel that it would be working too much. And here, of course, a big difference with when you have the turbo in comparison to the MPI. If you drive city only and you don't do, you know, things like that when testing and not so much autobahn, then you can save money, go with the MPI. Here, of course, you have the turbo boost. And considering this is even the 95 horsepower version of the 1-liter TSI, that was pretty decent. Also, I like the sound again. Oh, now I see a controller radar. So I go back to the real speed. And, of course, you can also set the cruise control. Let's put it on. There we go. So, separate lever on the steering wheel. Now just set it. Next corner. Sometimes you even feel you could be riding faster with the vehicle because, again, the sound installation is so well done. So, experienced small car segment, think this could be one of the most silent one yet. Really looking forward, you know, to compare it again with the Volkswagen Polo, for example. You know, there are also Seat Ibiza reviews driving from AJ already with the 1.5 liter Evo. And also AJ has tested the Volkswagen Polo yet, so also good to compare those two. There's a nice corner approaching. You can very well read the GPS, by the way, so as long as the screen, I told you that earlier, is really clean, it's really very crisp to look at. So don't touch it that often then, basically. You can also have basic GPS information in the middle screen, in the, you know, in the speed gauges. However, I have the current speed for you right there that you can actually monitor my speed and say, hey, Thomas, you're going too fast here. No, I mean, you can better see the engine power then. It's really nice how light the car is also. So when the car is heavier, for example, those winding corners are not so much fun because you're always getting pushed to the outside. Don't forget to mention, front-wheel drive only, of course, this vehicle. It's totally sufficient. I mean, in the hard acceleration we've just shown you, you hear the tires a little bit screaming. So that can, of course, happen with front-wheel drive when the weight is getting pushed to the rear. That's nice, you know, also when you're just in the second gear and you don't let the clutch slip, and you still have, you know, power from the low RPM areas. So, I mean, the 1.5 liter Evo engine is a very attractive engine for this vehicle. And you have basically, considering the size, abundance of power then. Almost as much power as before with the Cupra version of a Seat Ibiza. But what I have experienced here always with a 95 horsepower engine, I would say this engine is way sufficient for this very vehicle. So again, if you compare it to the previous generation, it has been improved in every sense: comfort, power, driving dynamics. This car feels so much more refined, and also again against its competition, this is really also driving wise a very hot bet in this segment. Now to the next driving part with the 1 liter TSI, but now 115 horsepower. The question is really, there's a little extra price for it, but is it also worth the money? What about consumption? Also a good question. Well, this different horsepower trim for the engines, I wouldn't mind that much in general. Also, when you ask me that for other cars, should I go for the 180 or 220 horsepower version, for example, for Tiguan? I'm not exactly sure if it's really worth the money. It is rather tuning the engine. The displacement figure of the engine will be this very same, and consumption will rather go up because you get more power out of the very same engine. So you have to be aware of that for sure. However, we can still depict the differences. From the general driving characteristics here, it's not really different in the Excellence trim. Does the engine have really more power when I'm here in second gear now? Yeah, maybe a little bit. So it's really not, the world-changing difference, but maybe just a little slightly. So the question is always, how much money do you want to spend? And we always try to advise you also spend the right amount of money with that vehicle and maybe don't exceed your initial budget. So what I have the feeling is, for example, when I'm here in the second gear now, you do have a little bit more power from the lower RPM region. First. But if someone would tell me now, you're in a 95 horsepower car, could I really deny it? I'm not exactly sure. However, we also have the same 6-speed manual gearbox here now, and see again how fast you can gain speed and also how easy it is to maintain. And you always realize it also when you're driving with some locals here on the very same roads, and how fast you can catch up to the next vehicle in front of you, although you are not driving too fast actually. So that shows that it's very dynamic in the corners and doesn't push you too much over the front wheels. It's still a front wheel drive car, but due to the low weight and this new stiff chassis, you don't feel pushed too much to the corners. So there's no, that you say, like understeering in every corner. So now, shall we go left or right? Let's go left. Push it a little bit more. Yeah, now when you really go to the very maximum point of the throttle, then you do feel a little difference. Again, it's just a notch between 95 and the 115 horsepower version. The bigger step you will then feel when you have the 1.5 liter, because that is, massive difference in the displacement then, and you can also, have the newer technology for that one. Also just on paper, from the acceleration, that makes really a lot difference. So let's see, with the sun visor down, it's good, then I'm not blinded anymore. Also has a good height for that one. Back to the third gear, it's really fun to shift the car around. And here again, see, even small steering commands are directly transported, now even at higher speeds. car is still very silent on the interior. I think you can also hear that on camera. Now braking, let's brake a little bit harsher. Good braking performance here too. You know, there's always a discussion between what about drum brakes in the rear? Most of the manufacturers, when they have the small car segment, they decide like at a certain horsepower range, let's put discs also in the rear. You know, when you're inside the vehicle and brake it, not brake it down, of course, reduce the speed. It's not often that you can't really say which brakes are applied, because the most braking power is done for the front wheels. And now one interesting thing about fine dust, which is, you know, as you know, pretty hazardous, with a drum brake, it's basically one closed system. With disc brakes, you create more fine dust, which is always also in discussion from the exhaust fumes and stuff. So this is maybe also one aspect you have to take into consideration. So it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me which version comes with disc brakes now and which one still has drum brakes in the rear. So also the light has a little bit changed now, and I can still very well see this crystal clear display. I can carry maybe a microfiber tissue with you. That's of course really helpful then to keep that one clean. Also the main instruments can be read very well. If you ask me now, shall I really go for this 115 horsepower version? If you want to save the money, do it. It's actually no problem. If you have abundance in money, then directly go for the 1.5 liter. Now just a short off-road path. Damn cigarette bin. This is always creating some bad noise in the interior. Now we want to hear to the rest of the noises. Maybe the camera is doing it, but this is a good test actually. It's still quite silent here, although we are on this bumpy beach road. Also suspension-wise, again, I think they have put up a great suspension, because all of the bumps we have here, they are not really transported onto your body. I think that's a good thing. So, some impressions from this vehicle here with a different engine. Here again, maybe to show you how easily you can steer it around, also for more narrow roads, and also when you have to go slowly and maybe find a parking lot. And with this vehicle, you know, it's never stressful in any way, because it's really small enough. So, I hope you enjoyed it. Second ride with us here today. Now to a third driving part for today, but you will be rewarded when you kept watching Autogefühl in full length all the way, because the third part here will be maybe the most interesting one. Because this one here now is the FR. Also, we have different rim size. So we start with 16, then 17, now 18 inch maximum rim size. So that one is already a little bit stiffer. They look best, yes, design-wise, but you'll be just fine also with 16 and 17. You've seen it earlier. It also fits the vehicle very well. The bigger the rims, the less tire you have left, and that also has an effect on comfort. So if you want the most soft comfort, go for smaller rims. If you want a little sportier ride, then, you know, really want to have the visual, then go for the bigger rims. Here also the FR version comes with a sports suspension 50 millimeters lower. You do feel it in the normal setup that it's sportier, and to me that's actually quite pleasing in the normal driving mode, because the car so far felt sporty, but it could, for, you know, sporty expectation, have, you know, a little sportier notch, and this is actually given here. So I have even better contact to the road. The steering wheel is also a little bit stiffer. and thicker. Nice engine sound here from a 3-cylinder again. So this little thicker steering wheel is also sportier to drive. So that's really good. Also, key finding from those Alcantara seats, which are the sport seats then, also different seating form. Of course, it always depends on your body. To me, they fit also very well. And the interesting thing is, somehow they make the impression that this would be an even bigger vehicle now. So we've talked about it before between, you know, small car segment and compact car segment. Now, together with those seats here, if someone would tell me, you are driving a Seat Leon now, I couldn't deny it, you know. It really feels like a good decision. Really feels like a Seat Leon now, or like driving a Volkswagen Golf maybe. You wouldn't really believe that this one is still a small segment vehicle, and that's really astonishing. Then, even more exciting is the DCC, which we have installed here. At the moment I'm starting in a normal driving mode. Of course, those driving modes also usually have an impact on the shifting when you have an automatic gearbox. As it's all manual so far, I do expect that there will be some, you know, automatic versions in the future. I think the 1.5 with DCC, for example, it will surely come at some point. But we also have the sport mode, and with the sport mode, the main changes are then with the manual hand drive, the suspension, and this is really stiffer then. So that would be for a very sporty ride then. You have even more contact to the road. That one feels really agile then. However, for normal city driving, it's like pop, 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 pop. So it is less comfortable, definitely. If you then would combine it with this 1.5 liter Evo engine, put it in sport mode, then it would be the closest you can get to the previous Cupra generation, which is not planned yet. Not so many people have bought it, so for economic reasons they decided not to go for it so far. I'm not sure if they changed their mind at some point, but again with the 1.5, then with the sport mode, you're almost as fast also as the previous generation Cupra. So really interesting. You do not necessarily need the DCC with this vehicle because the normal suspension is also really fine. If you want a little bit stiffer, you can go for the FR version, then also have the sporty look. DCC, then the optional part. Yeah, I mean, you have a little wider span, so you can choose then between normal and sporty driving situations. So if you like that, you can go for it. But again, it's a small car. You always have to watch the price that you don't exceed it. Last but not least, I had different experience now with the consumption. So AJ in the 1.5 liter was just about 6 liters in the mix, and this is also somewhat what we'll end up with here, maybe a little bit higher. On one run I tried to make really a consumption run, tried to get it low as possible. That was then 5 liters on 100 kilometers. That is possible with the 1 liter TSI turbo petrol engine. When you really hammer it, you could easily also score 7.5, something like that. And so the realistic figure then usually is something in between. So if you mix it, city driving, countryside, sometimes push it to accelerate, sometimes not. 6.5 liters for this engine, I think, is the average consumption. It's not too bad. Still, I think it could be lower because you can also, we know some engines which score less in consumption, and also bigger engines that score equal the consumption figures. So, I mean, you can basically live with that. Even that would be some point that could still be improved for sure. So very interesting to compare those. I mean, small differences. I mean, it was basically all the same car today, but all of the trims, and when you change something with the horsepower layout of the engine, DCC or normal suspension and so on. This is really interesting how you can spice up your car life with that, even though you drive the very same car. And that's also this individualization trend that's been going on, so that no vehicle will be exactly the same. Well, there's some more nice corners to come now. I don't want to have you missing that. So let's see here. Some off-road as well. Now the suspension really has to work. Something was banging there when we had those big bumps. But in the normal suspension mode, still quite fine. And also not too loud. So really fond again of this suspension of the small vehicle. Again, I think the main thing for the driving part today is really this one feels and behaves as it would be a bigger vehicle. In a good way, not like in a bulky way, in a sense of sovereignty of the vehicle. Oh no, and now we get the vehicle all dusty. That's too bad. I'm gonna do some more photo shots for you, right? And now our conclusion for today, the all-new Seat Ibiza. New trims, new colors, styles for you today here. A very interesting experience, that's for sure. Exterior, a very dynamic outlook, also if you compare it to other competitors in this very segment. The interior, very well processed, good styling there too. You have a lot of individualizations possible, nice seat materials, and also from the style of the seat, I think the trim levels have also been arranged quite well. With the GPS, you can also go now for a big infotainment system. You've seen that one here today, and the offering of space on the interior is actually quite astonishing. Also, if you can compare it to competitors, thanks to this new platform, especially a lot of room on the rear seats. Driving-wise, one of the top in this segment is a sporty driving experience already when you have a car that is still quite affordable. And also fighting for today, I mean, the 1.5 liter Evo engine is a great one, and you have abundance of power for this vehicle. But also the smaller ones are already, a little bit more affordable and powerful enough. We've seen it in the acceleration test. Just the consumption is, I think, the one drawback I found with this vehicle. It is too high, especially with the small engines. And this is, something with the bigger engine. You can have less consumption because you can run it at lower RPM. So overall, spending a little bit more money for the bigger engine can then on a long-term run maybe save some fuel. So I want to hear your opinion on the all-new Seat Ibiza and the new styles and trims we've shown you here today. And don't forget to check also out the one from AJ from earlier, a couple of months earlier. This will also be very enlightening for you. Thank you so much for watching Autogefühl, and see you next time.